3 and verse 22. And this chapter is entitled Karma Yoga. So this verse says, O son of Prita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems. Yeah, like, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything. And yet, I am engaged in prescribed duty. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures as follows. Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram, Tam Devatanam Paramam Shadaivatam, Patim Patinam Paramam Parastad, Vidam Devam Bhuvane Sampidyam, Natasya Karyam Karanam Chavidyate, Natat Samat Chavyad because Chajustate, Prasya Shakti Vividai Vastriyate, Swabhaviki Yanavala Kriyacha. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers. And He is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under His control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, He is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than Him, and He is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between His body and His soul. He is absolute. All His senses are transcendental. Any one of His senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than Him or equal to Him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus His deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. This is taken from the Svetasvatara Upanishad, chapter 6, verses 7 and 8. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead and is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty, but one who has nothing to achieve within the 3 planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet, Lord Krishna is engaged in the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty-bound to give protection to the distressed. Although He is above all regulations of the revealed scriptures, He does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this verse says, there's a verse, chapter 3, verse 22. Name partasti kartavyam trishu lokesu kinchana. Nanavaktam Yam Varta Eva Karmani. O son of Prita, there's no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything. And yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. Well, to understand that verse, we'll have to read the next verse, which says, Yadihi ham avateyam jatakarmani atandrita. Mama vartaman vartate manushyapa sarvasa. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, meaning Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my path. And in the purport, it says, this is text 23, in order to keep the balance of social tranquility, it means peace in the social system, for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned soul and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps, because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties of home, at home, and out of home, as required of a householder. So, although Krishna is transcendental to everything, still, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to avoid chaos in society, he acts as if he's an ordinary person to give an example of how to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness. That's why it says in text 23, for if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my path. So, Krishna is not obliged to follow any prescribed duty, but he is doing it to give a good example so that instead of people making up their own principles or their own, let's say, made up speculations, he acts following all the principles of Dharma to educate others by his example. That's why it's said that example is better than precept. Look this up. Mm-hmm. Example is better than precept. This is a proverb that Prabhupada quotes sometimes. Basically, it means if you give an example of something, it's better than just explaining something.
Basically, the idea that the actions speak louder than words.
Words, yeah.
Achar versus prachar.
Okay. Achar versus prachar. And that's why he says, for if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my. So follow the leader. The Krishna gives an ideal example of a householder, an ideal example of a father, an ideal example of a king, ideal example in every way, so that others can be inspired to follow his example, not try and emulate him, but to follow his example. There's a difference between trying to emulate someone and as opposed to following the example of someone. Obviously, you can't emulate Krishna picking up Govardhan Parvat or the Govardhan hill or mountain. But you can follow Krishna's, let's say, example as a good husband, as a good father, as a good leader, etc. That's why it says here that Yadihi aham navarteyam jatu karmani tandrita mamavart manavartante manusyaparta sarvasaha. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my path. So, Krishna is not failing to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties. He's very careful about performing prescribed duties, although he doesn't have to, so that others will follow his ideal example of a father and of a leader, of a king, etc. And in the purport, it says, in order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress, social tranquility means peace, the peace of the social order, so that people may make spiritual progress in spiritual life. There are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not for Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. So follow the leader. Krishna is not a bogus leader. He is a genuine leader. He follows whatever he says corresponds with whatever he does. It's not like nonsense people who say, follow what I, no, he says, yeah, whatever he says is what he actually does. He's not like nonsense people. They say one thing, but they do something else. So there are a lot of leaders like that. They talk about peace. They talk about having a good family life, and then you catch them having illicit sex, and they in order to hide their deficiencies, they start a war. You see, and so many innocent people have to die because of the nonsense of leaders who can't control their senses. And that's why Krishna says, for if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my path. So it is necessary to have people who are the paradigm of morality and even better than that, of genuine Krishna consciousness. And this way, the regular people will have a good example to follow. Most people are not leaders, but they can be good followers if you have a good leader. And if you have a bad leader, well, they'll follow that also. So it's very important that the leaders of society, like for example, Trump is not really a good leader. Why? Well, he loves to eat hamburgers. Right there, that eliminates his leadership qualities. And he has a history of being a ladies' man and getting women pregnant and things like that, and not marrying them. So he's done a lot of nonsense things in his life. So he is not an ideal person. But Lord Krishna is an ideal person. And we cannot emulate Krishna, but we can follow his good example. And his good example is given to educate people how to make spiritual advancement. And that's why in this verse, let's see, we were reading 24, right? No, we read 23. Now we're really read
24 next.
And Krishna says, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Yeah, so prescribed duties, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, chanting Hare Krishna, and following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna doesn't have to do any of that, but he does to give a good example to be followed by people who want to make spiritual advancement. Now, the purport to this, to verse 24, it says, first of all, the verse says, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. Why? Because of illicit sex. And if he didn't perform prescribed duties, there would be chaos in society. Men would take advantage of women, and children wouldn't be properly protected, and so forth. Therefore, Krishna says, I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So it's very important that the leaders of society give up meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication, and take up Krishna consciousness seriously, where there's no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, but there is chanting Hare Krishna, eating only prasadam, which is vegetarian food offered to the Lord, engaging in devotional service, and regularly hearing lectures given by bona fide devotees, etc. So then these people who act like that, they become leaders of society and give a good example for the regular people to follow. So in the purport, verse 24, it says, Varna Shankara, the meaning is unwanted population. That means that children who are born out of wedlock or burn or their parents engage in sex based on lust, and therefore the children are not of good quality, because the quality of the child is going to depend on the consciousness of the parents engaged in copulation. So both the mother and the wife and the husband are both in the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion and ignorance, then obviously Krishna will give them a child who is also in the mode of passion and ignorance. So the science of having good children is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Everything depends on the consciousness of the father and the mother. There's a science to having children. Not too many people are interested in learning about such a science. But if you do follow the science of procreation, you will have very good children who are, for the most part, in the mode of goodness. And from that step, they can go through training to the mode of transcendental goodness, and that means they become pure devas. Varna Sankara is unwanted population, which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill, as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam affirms in the 10th canto, 33rd chapter, 30 and 31 verse. Naitat samacharejja tu manasapihi anishwara vinasyati acharan modyad yatarudo vidijam visham ishwaram vacha satyam tai vacharitam kvachit tesam yat swa vacho yuktam buddhimams tat samacharit. One should strictly follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servant. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. We should always, we have people that do that because Lord Shiva, he swallowed the poison. So nowadays, there are Shaivites that try and emulate Lord Shiva by smoking marijuana and other types of intoxicants. So that's nonsense. We should always consider the poison of the position of the Ishwaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon. as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishvaras who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. But if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Lila, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhana Hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. Nor should one try to occupy their posts without qualification. There are so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Amen. That's a real factual statement. Okay, so our takeaway here is that one should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servant. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. One should not, however, one should guard against trying to imitate their action. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. There are so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. A great statement by Prabhupada. Okay, text 25. Are there any questions? Any questions?
Just about.
Just about, well, the next one is short report.
Yeah.
So text 25. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. That's a great verse. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activity. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Yes, so the work of a materialistic person and the work of a devotee may look the same, very similar, but the motive is different. The materialistic person works in order to have sense gratification, and the devotee works to please Krishna. So although they might be doing the same type of activity, there's a world of difference of the purpose to be accomplished. So the devotee wants to please Krishna, and the materialist wants to please himself. That's why it says here, a person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activity. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, that's the karmi, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna, that's the devotee. Although the activity might look the same, but the purpose is different. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. So it's not only how to act, but also how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Okay, we will stop right there. Are there any questions, comments, etc.?
Particular verse is very important to understand, right? Because we are doing similar actions, but without attachment.
Yeah, the purpose is different.
Yeah.
Although the action might look the same, but the purpose is different. We want to please Krishna and Guru, and other people simply want to aggrandize, become rich or powerful, or whatever, for sense gratification. So a devotee has a car, and the materialist has a car. But for an ordinary person looking at things, they would say, well, they're the same. Right? But the motive of the devotee is different than the motive of the materialist. So you have to look at the motive. The devotee's motive is to please spiritual master and Krishna. And the motive of the non-devotee is to please his own temple, or his family, or the state. Right? So there's a world of difference. That's why it says here, a person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. The devotee's desire is to please Krishna, and the materialist desires to please himself or please his family or please his country or whatever. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to the development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activity. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other, meaning the devotee, is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. So oftentimes people, devotees can show other people how to act, but they may not engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. So you have to do both things. You have to show people how to act properly and how to engage the results of action, meaning money, for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Haribol, Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol. Any questions online?
You said about the results of action means money is one example. So basically that money will be used in spreading Krishna consciousness, and that to show them how we are spending. And
Yeah, well, you have to spend to maintain your family, but you also have to spend to spread Krishna consciousness. You can't let your family starve, right? But yet you should not spend everything just to, have family life. You have to also use your assets to spread Krishna consciousness. So there's different assets. Now, maybe you're a good speaker, or maybe you're a good singer, or maybe you're a good philosopher, or maybe you're a good businessman, right? So you have to dovetail your activities and talents in the service. Same time, you have to take care of your family if you're married. If you're not married, well, that just gives you more time, energy, and money to spread Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Any other question?
Anyone online? Looks like none. No questions online.
Hari Prabhu, any question?
Oh, yes, Mataji, go ahead. I got Ranasaki Mataji, you unmuted, wanted to say something.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. I had a question for Guru Maharaj. I just wanted to understand, like, we have to act according to, so that the trend can be.
Mataji, Mataji, for some reason your voice is not coming through at all. It's I don't know if it is on our end or is it, anybody else can unmute and say something. Just wanted to see if it is something on the our end.
Able to hear, Prabhuji.
Okay. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so it's a problem. It seems like a little bit on our end. I'm not sure exactly. We will have to test this after.
Yeah, it's got the privacy voices or something on, you know. You can't
Yeah,
recognize the
so
voice.
this morning it worked. So yeah, it's most likely something we need to change on our end. We're not able to hear you guys. So maybe if you have a question, go ahead and type it. If not, then we'll see you in the morning. Okay, so no questions. Bye. Will we wrap it up, right? No questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Have a good evening. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.